place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality, build with Right Choice.
Hi, I'm Priscilla Presley. My love for animals began when I was 5 years old and found a puppy wandering alone. Growing up in a military family, pets weren't allowed, but I couldn't turn him away, and my family let me adopt him. That moment sparked a lifelong commitment to speak up for animals who can't speak for themselves. 50 plus years ago, Elvis and I supported American Humane Society because animals deserve our voice. And now, more than ever, they still do. American Humane Society saves lives and strengthens the bond between humans and animals. Each year, millions of animals end up in shelters, waiting for someone to give them a second chance. Your compassion can change a life. Please visit AmericanHumane.org to learn more. Thank you.
Halloween isn't here yet, but that doesn't mean you have to wait till the day of trick-or-treating to go out and have fun, because we have scary, fun experiences for you at 62% off at InsaneRadioDeals.com, brought to you by VTRN. That's right, folks. We're doubling the love at 62% off list price items like Star City Half Marathon, Liberty Flames tickets, Rise Up Climbing Day and month passes, and Aqua Trek Adventures. All this and more now to November 3rd on InsaneRadioDeals.com.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app, 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, or by asking Alexa or Google Home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
So yesterday in the Fast Lane, it was more of an optimistic tone. Liberty Flames, they win 30-27, even though 17 of the 30 points came either directly from New Mexico State special teams miscues, missed tackles, Juju Gray, 96-yard kick return touchdown, or indirectly a touchdown and a field goal for the Flames set up by muffed Aggie punts. Today is just a more blunt assessment of the Liberty Flames. They're 3-4. Not in a horrible spot, but it doesn't feel like in any win they've shown enough offensively to have seized the day. Their defense has largely been bend but don't break, but they have broken in certain spots. Second half against JMU, second half against Old Dominion, second half against Jacksonville State, all come to mind. And some of these are easier to have foreseen than others. First of all, defensively, to get my usher on here in the Fast Lane as much as anyone, I underestimated, but as you know, well, our guy Kurt from Good Burger, RIP to him, would say,
well, I should have known.
I should have known that when you lose two of your top defensive linemen to the spring transfer portal window, this is not Miami, Texas, insert your other school here, where you lose a guy in the spring portal window, and it may be because you're upgrading over him. If you're Liberty losing a guy in the spring portal window, it may be because upon further review, somebody decided they needed those services and could just flat out pay more than you can, which is a reality anyway for a school like Liberty in the transfer portal, but it stings so much more when you put all the effort in, you game plan around the idea of a TJ Bush, who was the preseason favorite by many at the end of last year for this year's Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. And yet Cal, as gutted as they were by the portal with many departures, they decided there could be an upgrade. Maybe there were other schools involved. I'm sure there was. And there were. And he leaves to go to the Golden Bears. You'll hear him next Friday, VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports, Cal at Virginia Tech. And then Jay Hardy. To be a backup, yes, hardly used perhaps at Auburn, but inevitably everybody at that level is largely getting a pretty sizable amount of money. It's just more than Liberty can pay for anybody, much less he's a backup there. And granted, when you're thinking long-term, maybe you want more playing time, but a lot of these guys, their family situations dictate long-term is not an option. They dictate short-term has to be the consideration. When you're operating theoretically at a deficit for a lot of these families from just the raw economics of their life. I don't fault the players. But when it comes to Liberty, they were hit by that hard. And it doesn't look like the Liberty defense is able to get a lot of push on the defensive front. They put a lot of strain on the edge rushers and linebackers so that they cannot necessarily freely roam, but instead they're having to kind of come up and clean up and run block and support. And in some cases, they're getting blocked right off on the second level, and it's creating these massive holes, which now are more exploited because of the injuries to the defensive backfield at Liberty. You know, I look at Liberty, and that's the one where it drops up. And Jamie Chowell addressed this after the game on Tuesday night about New Mexico State, which was also prolific at running the ball.
They were leaning on us a little bit from a run standpoint. You know, those some of the runs they were running, and then quarterback made some good plays. We could not affect him. You know, could not affect him, and I'd have to look. I mean, they're 10 of 17 on third down. It seemed like every drive there, we had them on multiple third downs, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, and could not get them off the field.
Couldn't get them off the field. Well, the easiest way to start that is with the pass rush. An easy way to have done that would have been to have someone like TJ Bush rushing the passer, or Jay Hardy eating up multiple blocks so that your defensive linemen can get more pressure. And you know, guys like CJ Brazil have made plays at times. Guys like, God, his name escapes me, the Appalachian State transfer off the edge for the Flames. They've had a couple of guys that have come in there and have been able to make plays this year. But inevitably, there's just not enough there defensively. The defensive side, I'm not excusing this for Liberty, but you can plan this a lot better just with the fact that there's now going to be one transfer portal window from January 2nd through 15th or 16th, as opposed to that second window where you have guys go through spring practice, the spring games, spring ball, spring conditioning, and all of a sudden they bail because somebody is desperate and overpays for them, like happened to Liberty. That in and of itself, it doesn't help the Flames this year, but that solution of how Liberty prevents something like this from happening again may just be organically put in place by the new rules, at least until they get challenged in the court of law, TJ.
No, for sure. I think how they do in this transfer portal upcoming in January is going to be huge. Obviously, defense, linebackers especially. The linebacker position for me is probably the weakest, even weaker than that D-line.
Yeah, you mentioned the linebacking corps. I would say it has been disappointing, but the flip side I would say of why it's been disappointing is the structure of the Liberty defense is designed to where the defensive line is supposed to get more pressure, take a lot off, and you can have your linebackers roam freely. They've basically been asked on the fly to learn an entirely different new way of operating, and it's clearly shown because it doesn't look like they've been able to do anything remotely close to what you would expect from a Flames team. So that's part of it. I mean, you look at New Mexico State, they had more first downs than Liberty did. They had 11 rushing to the Flames, 5 on the ground. And New Mexico State ran the ball effectively. I know 4-ish yards a carry is not a lot, but they stuck with it and just kept pounding on the Flames. And to the ever-loving point of what Jamie Chadwell mentioned as well, the Flames just could not get off the field in this game defensively. And that was a real problem for them, is their defense and the inability consistently all year to get off the field. How do you solve that? I think some of that is just you can plan better in the offseason. Guys have one crack at the transfer portal, and you can go around that and do more versus like this game, 10 of 17 on third downs, 1 of 1 on fourth down for New Mexico State. You know, it's not good. Meanwhile, the flip side of that is the Liberty Flames offensively, 3 of 10 on third downs. They have been a rough watch offensively all season. They only had 7 points entering the fourth quarter in the opener against Maine. Never really felt like they were going to get going even before Ethan Vasco's injury to JMU. He didn't play, and they looked like they had nothing at Old Dominion earlier this year. And it's taken a while to get going in their other games also. And they moved the ball probably the best they had all year against UTEP, but had to settle for field goals. And then they really looked stuck in the mud. It was the short fields and the special teams that accounted for 17 of the initial 23 points for Liberty's offense until that final 13-play, 92-yard touchdown scoring drive, which, again, to give the Flames credit, TJ, yes, but they're 3 of 10. And I go back to this, and this is the more confounding one, and I'm looking at the Flames. I could see the defense. We just explained it away, how in hindsight, if you were to get your Kurt from Goodberger on, RIP to Kurt, if you were to get that on, you should have known that when you lose a couple of big defensive linemen out of the spring transfer portal window, it's going to be really tough to replace them, and it's going to be a concern. I'll be honest, offensively is the one where it's been more disconcerting. This is supposedly in the really any answers at all until maybe unlocking something on that final drive where they went with a little bit more tempo. And
Yeah, I think a no huddle offense suits him better, Ed, in all honesty. And maybe it's just because of that one drive that I feel that way. But I think, like you said, up tempo, maybe Georgia Tech style offense where you just go no huddle relentlessly. It just looks to be their style. And I think they found their edge. Can they keep it? Where has this been all year long?
well, and that's the big thing is, you had the whole offseason to figure out who your quarterback was going to be. And again, lesson learned for Jamie Chadwell.
Yeah.
If your backup quarterback in a run-heavy offense, which demands a lot of running from the quarterback, has a history of injuries, that's one thing. Vasco's got them. Other players have had them. When those injuries are concussions and head-related injuries, we know guys, the ticking time bomb, no offense, but that's kind of what it is. At some point, that may come back to bite them, whereas guys in all levels of football, particularly high school, college and the pros, they'll go through procedure after procedure after procedure to keep playing. You just can't do that with head injuries.
No.
That's a live and learn from this coaching staff that even if it's a backup, any quarterback with a history of head injuries, you got to tread very lightly around that and counting on that quarterback to have a role. But even with Vasco having played the majority of the year, they're 3 of 10 on third down. The Flames are. It looked clunky the entire way. It's almost like you see the wheels and the gears turning in Vasco's head of trying to figure out to where he should be distributing the ball and where he should be putting it. And that takes its time. And I go back to what the Jamie Chadwell press conference was right around the loss, right after the loss to Jacksonville State. And one of the areas the Flames had to improve at that point, and I don't think it's gotten better. And I think this is a bit of a personnel issue and maybe a player development one as well, but the offensive line.
Some of those, you wish that those guys would just do what they're coached to do more consistently. They're fighting. They're trying to do well. But we got to play better there. We have to, and we've not been able to we've had spurts of running the football. We get some big plays, and then it seems like there's a penalty down the field, like a receiver just has his hands outside instead of inside. So little detailed things are hurting us from having some explosive plays. And if you're going to score points, you got to have explosive plays. And so I think it's an overall offense. Everybody's got to do their job. We had chances in a lot of ways if people just did their job to put more points on the board. So it starts up front.
It does start up front. And look, here's the crazy thing. That quote we just played from Jamie Chadwell, that's like a month old.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like the offensive line has gotten any better. And I don't think Bill Durkin went from being a really good to a really bad offensive line coach. Some of the blame does have to go on him. Some of it also, I think, is whoever's identifying the offensive line pieces and getting them in place. You're not going to get finished products in the offensive line. I mean, heck, guys that transferred out like Xavier Gray to Northwestern and Jordan White to Vanderbilt. It's not like these are the most stout offensive linemen in the country, and they're getting $300,000 to $400,000 reportedly to go to these type of spots for mediocre offensive linemen.
Yeah.
So if you're the Flames, I think a lot of it's internal. You've got to identify guys that have some upside internally out of high school and then really be working to develop them and be real with yourself. When you have guys that look like they might be halfway decent on the line, you've got to have the foresight to realize those guys are going to get plucked left and right to go up a level in college athletics. There's just too much of a demand for good offensive line play. And Liberty, I don't think, has properly evaluated that. And again, these are not fire the coach, fire the coaching staff. These are, let's look at this now and into the offseason if you're the Flames coaching staff and be real with ourselves of where we can address things to improve. It's not going to likely get better this year. It's hard for offensive linemen to all of a sudden add the muscle mass, add the strength, still maintain their agility, and, oh, by the way, do that while you're taking on wear and tear of a season. It doesn't quite work like that. But maybe restructuring your offseason program, some developmental ways, because the offensive line looked like it was an issue in the spring football game. Ty Tracy and I were there. I don't know if you were as well, TJ.
No, I wasn't.
But Ty and I were there, and Ty played, again, O-line and D-line for Heritage and did so for Virginia Union. Not quite at the Liberty level, but we both were looking at it like this is a real concern, and it has been a concern from the beginning of the year, and it has not gotten better. Something is going to have to change because that's the most important area to get this entire offense going. And if nothing else, if there's an upside to what Vasco can do, and you question his decision-making, and there's some interceptions, which are real head-scratchers from my perspective, I would easily be going at this and going, maybe there are things we can do. One of those is the foundation of this offense, TJ, which is running the football and dictating the game through your offensive line, the Flames have not been able to do that at all this year. And I think it's borne itself out as to why this offense, 7 games out, we have enough sample size now to say this is a trend. This is who they are this year. It's a hard correction. Again, they're fighting. Give the Flames credit. They're scrapping and clawing. Give them more credit. If they can get to 6 wins, 3-2 the rest of the way, they get bowl eligible. And a lot of these guys, newsflash, don't strike me as, oh my God, they're going into the portal and leaving Liberty type guys off of a 6-6 season when you were supposed to be 9 to 10 wins according to the sports books, and you woefully underachieved that. Again, I'm not a fire the coach, but I'm a, hey, use the second half of the year to get better, to identify areas, and the offensive and defensive lines are those starting points for the Flames of who's going to be around, where you can get more productivity, and the value of a bowl game and the extra month or so of practice that you can get from that is crucial for the Flames. There is value for winning games over this season, but it's clear when you look at the areas for improvement for the Flames, D linemen, O linemen, and the quarterback play. I mean, I know I'm not, spouting anything earth-shattering, TJ, but those are 3 of the most important positions in football, and they're 3 units where the Flames have got to get better.
The trenches is the most important part to have solid in this kind of game, because if you don't, that's going to determine the kind of team you are. It's why Georgia and your Bamas and Clemson all those years ago was successful, because they had their trenches figured out.
And let's be real, it's the offensive side of the ball even more than defense. You can get the right personnel in the offseason, and you have the right size and athleticism, you can be fine. JMU's an example of that. Their offense was supposed to be good this year. It's really been the defense and that D-line that have carried the way for the Dukes, who are a one-loss team. The only loss was to a top 25 caliber team in Louisville. That may not look like that way tomorrow night. Maybe they do. But Liberty's offense is the one where you got to get better, because 28 points in the opener, but 3 of them were in the fourth quarter, so it really took a while to get going. 24 against Jacksonville State, 13-13 against Bowling Green and JMU, 7 at Old Dominion. I know there was rain, but it never looked great. And again, if you were great the rest of the year and you only scored 7 in that one because of the weather, you'll view it differently. And then you have 19 at UTEP, and then I'll call it, realistically 13 organic points against New Mexico State because of the short fields and the kick return touchdown that you got, which is a bit of a mirage. Now, you have a couple weeks till Delaware comes to Liberty University. Get your tickets now, 66% off the list price at InsaneRadioDeals.com. But you have a little bit of time before Delaware comes in, and you can get things resolved. Delaware's a sneaky good team this year. Missouri State, winnable. At FIU, hey, they're not great, but they won against Western Kentucky handily. Louisiana Tech, people thought they were going to be bad. They've been good this year. And then Kennesaw State in a revenge spot to wrap up the year. They're losable and winnable games for Liberty, but ones where you can easily get things resolved. There's time. I don't think you're going to get all of it figured out, but if there's enough to start seeing progress, that's where you go for Liberty. And again, I understand this is not enough long-term for where this program should be and the investment they're making in Chadwell, but it's enough in the short term. When we return to the Fast Lane, speaking of the Liberty Flames, an old story from the Liberty Flames rears its ugly head again when we return here in the Fast Lane.
With Terry Volkswagen, get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terrybw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
Yummy.
Looks should not be deceiving, especially when you place your order. Now under new ownership and newly staffed, Oliver's on Rivermont has a guarantee for you. What you see on the menu is what you'll get in every order. It's the same great-looking menu at Oliver's on Rivermont, now with new additions like pork chops, ribs, and pasta steaks. And the new chef is the master of consistency, so what you order is what you'll get every single time at Oliver's on Rivermont. Good to great. It's one of the hardest transitions to make. 801 Raw Bar has pulled it off. Their country boil bags have taken the good seafood and flavors from the Bayou region and brought them to the Hill City for a great seafood dish. You can also build your own seafood plates at 801 Raw Bar, featuring fresh shrimp, crabs, scallops, and fish from the Atlantic region. Step back into the relaxing beach house vibe with different regional seafood twists at 801 Raw Bar, on Church Street in downtown Lynchburg.
Feel the excitement, experience the intensity. Castle Coliseum comes alive when Hokie basketball takes the
He
court.
made it on 1 foot. Lead. It's down.
From buzzer beaters to hard-fought battles, Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball takes on the toughest teams in the ACC.
Step up and in. Here come the Hokies. Castle erupts.
Don't just hear about it, be there. Tickets on sale now at Hokiesports.com.
In most things, it's hard to go from ordinary to extraordinary. It's easy with your home or business. Call the Concrete Wizard and transform your place into an extraordinary space. If you're tired of looking unsightly concrete, then bring light to your old surfaces. Call the Concrete Wizard for free design consultations, free estimates, and fast professional concrete resurfacing. And visit theconcretewizard.com for ideas from other before and after photos.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590. We're smart support with real savings.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
We're going to have like 8, in case you missed it, editions of the Fast Five at 5-ish because we've been off a lot for the Major League Baseball playoffs, and we go just to 5:30 today because we have another Major League Baseball playoff game knocking us out of the way. Same thing is going to happen to TJ tomorrow, so he'll have to be mindful of the clock. Meanwhile, being mindful of numbers is where we begin the Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
I mean, look, Chris Collinsworth, we'll explain to you who he is because you don't actually watch him. You're listening to Sunday Night Football on the VTR and Sports app regularly. But he happens to be a guy who talks on the TV version of that broadcast. He also happens to be the majority owner of Pro Football Focus. And there are certain things like expected yards per play, expected yards given up, those type of statistical bits of information that PFF deserves credit for bringing to the mainstream. But their grades have been criticized by players and management, and I get those criticisms because there's not been a lot of public explanation from Collinsworth's company. He went on one of the shows today and said, thanks for your attention to those critics. You're helping our sales, which, again, to a certain level, I agree with that. Part of the reason I don't like the TV broadcast is they overinflate the PFF numbers. Maybe it's because Collinsworth's part of it and it's contractually written into that television contract. Again, if you want to avoid it, don't worry. Keep doing what you're doing, listening to Sunday Night Football on the VTR and Sports app. But I have never had an issue with Pro Football Focus in terms of their overall analytics that they brought in. I am a believer analytics have a big place, not only in the role of sports, but in the world as well. It's kind of like artificial intelligence. If you're just lazily relying on it, let's rethink things. But if you're incorporating it, that's a smart thing. But when you have grades and you don't really make them notable to the public and you don't really know what the players are actually being asked to do, and therefore you're grading based on that, that's where the level of concern gets a little bit greater. And PFF, to me, until they change that, it'll be on a much different scale to which it's viewed. I mean, take last year. Jalen Carter was not one of the top 10 defensive tackles, again, according to PFF last year. And I know he hasn't played well for the Eagles this year, but he was the reason they won the Super Bowl because he attracted all those double teams so all the other impending free agents could get sacks and big stats. And he also knocked the Rams out almost single-handedly. Meanwhile, where it comes to the Liberty Flames, past and back into the present. It's almost like history repeating itself from 2022. Sorry, TJ, to bring this one up. Hugh Freeze, mid-2022, signed a contract extension with Liberty. And a couple of people may have tipped me off. Look at the buyout number. Thought it was $5 million. I think it was $4 million, whatever. Auburn could easily pay that. That's the question now from Indiana's Curt Cignetti, who has agreed to a new 8-year extension with an average value of $11.6 million per year. Again,
Penn
what's
State's gonna have to break the wallet?
It is, but what's the buyout on that? How navigable is it? And by the time the FOIA Act information comes out, does it come out in late November when Indiana may already be close to their playoff destination? Does it change things? Hey, Liberty's dealt with this. Hugh Freeze extension wasn't really one because the buyout was pretty easy and navigable.
Is Notre Dame going to increase Marcus Freeman now too?
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you're an agent, it's it's a great time to be an agent, no doubt. Speaking of things to look forward to,
Number 3.
our guy, Michael Lombardi, North Carolina GM, not looking so good once again, took a fundraising trip to Saudi Arabia 2 weeks before the Tar Heels season opener. This according to Pablo Torre, and the information will come out a little later. That's not the biggest issue I'd have with Lombardi. A lot of these programs are looking for extra private equity, see the Big Ten, or extra sources, including, well, yes. Yes, we do. Coach Prime in Colorado apparently doing the same thing. Everybody's looking for funds wherever they can get them. I think the bigger issue for Lombardi are the repeated references to how he is not necessarily, he's taken on the bad cop role in the negotiation in the GM spot with North Carolina and the evaluation of talent. Again, a lot of this, the time that he needs and North Carolina needs to get a roster together would have been granted much more easily. Unless you said we're the 33rd NFL team and you welcome all this hype and attention with both your on-field proclamations for the upcoming season and, of course, all the Jordan Hudson-led distractions off of it. If you tampered that down, and look, again, Lombardi's friend of ours in the fast lane, but let's call a spade a spade. If he tampered it down instead of feeding into it, there might be more leniency as opposed to creating a lot of hype, which means people believe they have been sold a bill of goods, whether that is true or not. Meanwhile, the opposite direction of this in
Number 2.
TexSideline.com reported earlier this week Whit Babcock was going to speak with the media, but then he is not speaking with the media. That is off the table as NDAs have been signed by Babcock and others involved in the Virginia Tech search committee. We covered this yesterday with Chris Coleman of TexSideline.com. Trey did today with David Cunningham of TexSideline.com in the morning warm-up, VTRN Sports and Facebook Live, on Facebook Live and YouTube. To watch that if you missed any of it or wherever you listen to podcasts. I think it's a smart move, not only in light of what's going on with North Carolina, the ability to have NDAs. I think leaks will still pop out. I think they may want Babcock to leak certain things, and agents will continue to do this as well. But for as much of a cluster as Virginia Tech's coaching search has appeared to be, this is something that at least is a step in the right direction of Virginia Tech getting this thing under control, which is ever more important to convey that image with what we've got going on. Meanwhile, a twofer in
Number 1.
Virginia. 1, Scott Stadium, going to host a Luke Combs concert. It's not exactly Metallica at Virginia Tech. I think, if you were to do that, and I know he's already played at Scott Stadium, but Dave Matthews Band, and he's performed at John Paul Jones Arena as well. But Dave Matthews Band is kind of the equivalent to UVA of what Metallica is to Virginia Tech in terms of synonymous with where you are as a program. But I do expect we're going to see more of this at all sorts of places. Ian McCall, the last bit of our chat with him Tuesday in the Fast Lane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts. Right there. But Ian McCall mentioned that's on the table as well for Liberty with their facilities of finding alternate uses. Just get used to this being the norm in certain spots. Maybe not Metallica level at places like Virginia Tech or even Liberty, but you're going to see more concerts in these venues being used because there have to be more ways to generate revenue than ever before. The other one, Malcolm Brogdon deciding to retire from basketball. It is kind of eerily similar to Tony Bennett from a couple of years ago as Malcolm Brogdon retires from basketball and people have talked about politics. I'll go back to what we said with Jerry Ratcliffe yesterday. I don't think he has a dirty enough career to go into politics. He seems way too clean for that. In the meantime, we're off today. We go back live tomorrow, 5 to 5:30, and TJ will be with you, again, getting ready for Major League Baseball playoff action, which we go to right now on the VTRN Sports app.
This is the National League Championship Series on ESPN Radio.